Why would anyone pay extra money to Apple for storage? What I'd like to do today is talk about storage for Apple Macs, MacBooks, Mac Studios, MacBook Airs, Mac Minis, etc. Now, if you've watched my channel before, you'll be aware that I've been quite vocal about the fact that I don't like Apple's pricing policy, their pricing structure. I hate how much they charge for increasing memory and storage. And from a customer perspective, it's not just about paying over the odds for memory and storage, it's the fact that those components are non-upgradable. So I don't like the hypocrisy from companies like Apple that say that they're environmentally friendly, that they use recycled materials and all that, but at the same time, they're selling you devices with a 1-year warranty that's non-upgradable and has to be thrown in the bin when it stops working. So I'm not a fan of all of that. But Apple Macs are good. They're good. They're good computers. But I'm not going to hide the fact that they do make good computers. And I love Windows. I use Windows every day, but I like Apple Macs as well. This is the new Apple M4 Mac Mini, and I really do think in that price range, sub $600, this is the best computer you can get right now. I thought I was getting a bargain paying £585 for the base model here in the UK, but I've since seen, just less than a week later, that there's companies now selling this for like £530, £540 in the UK. So it's an absolute steal, but only if you get the base model. With Apple products, what they tend to do is bring you in, kind of reel you in into the base model, and then they try and get you onto their Apple pricing ladder so that you increase, and then before you know it, you're looking at more expensive options. The base model is fantastic, but the downside to that is that it has 256 gigabyte of storage. And I think over the last few years, most Apple Macs, their internal storage, the speeds are not what you would expect from a premium device. Certainly in the Windows world, with PCI Gen 4 SSDs, etc., Windows users are seeing faster speeds. Now, what you can see here is my attempt to resolve the fact that this has 256 gigabyte of storage. I'm not playing their game. I'm not going to pay over the odds for storage. So I've got a few USB 4 enclosures here. I've got a USB Type-C 10 gigabit per second enclosure there. That was recommended by David Harry. It looks pretty good. So I'll do a video about these enclosures another day. I want to test them. I want to gather my thoughts. But I have been testing it. I have been playing around with it. And I think this is an okay solution. But it does mean that your computer starts to look like a little bit of an octopus. So the alternative to that, if you don't want to have dongles and accessories, you pay the Apple Premium. That's what most people do. They pay the Apple Premium. They pay over the odds for storage. But there is an alternative, and it's the reason for this video. So if I jump over to the browser, this is the Studio Drive, and this is on Kickstarter. And as with all Kickstarter projects, walk in there with your eyes open. Be aware that some Kickstarter projects, they don't deliver. I'm not saying this company is not, but there's a lot of companies out there that have screwed people on Kickstarter, and they release the products on Amazon before they've even delivered to the people that invested in the project. Not all of them. There's a lot of good companies that do use Kickstarter, but be aware of that before you jump into any purchase on Kickstarter. Be aware of the risks. But that being said, what we have here is the Studio Drive, and you can see here that this is a custom 2TB to 8TB SSD for the Apple Mac Studio M1 and M2 with NAND over voltage protection, up to 8TB, 7.4 gigabytes per second, up to 14,000 terabyte written lifetime, and a 5 years warranty. 5 years. Apple give you 1 year. Be aware of that. Now, if you go down, you can see that this is a company that's got a lot of history with working with Apple computers, and they talk about the fact that the Mac Studio, the built-in SSDs, they're not, the cache, etc., is not good enough, and they're talking about the fact that people are using Thunderbolt enclosures. You can see the OWC Envoy, which is a similar model to the one that I've got. I think it came before the Express 1M2 that I've got here. And they talk about the custom SSD. So in the Mac Studio, the SSD is removable, it's upgradable, but there's no options from Apple to do that. They want you to pay the premium. So they have come out with this solution to address some limitations of the fact that it's because you can't just drop in like a standard SSD. And so they have developed something here and they've got lots of different options. Now, the good news for those of you like myself that purchased a Mac Mini M4 is that the SSD is removable and upgradable. And that's quite good. And the company has said here they've reached 300% of their target, and they said that they're delighted that the new Mac Mini M4 offers a replaceable SSD module up to 2 terabyte, and the Mac Mini M4 Pro offers a replaceable SSD module up to 8 terabyte. So what they're saying they're doing is that priority is given to those who are ordering SSDs from Mac Studio, but they're already working on Mac Mini M4 modules. So potentially in the future, I could buy a 2 terabyte or 4 terabyte module from this company and I could upgrade my Mac Mini and I could save myself a huge amount of money. Now, the Kickstarter project here is priced in euros. So I went on to Apple Island so that it's euros as well. And you can see that the prices are the same for the Mac Studio M1 and M2. So you can buy it blank if you want to, add your own SSD. That's 149 euros. But they've also got a 2 terabyte option here. And I think a lot of people will just opt for that default option, the pre-built SSD option. So if you look at this here, 2 terabytes for the Mac Studio M1 or M2, and let's jump over. So this is just the current Mac Studio M2 Max, and let's go down. So you get 512 gigabyte of SSD storage in the base model. If you want to go up to 2 terabyte, that's 690. So they're charging 399, 5-year warranty, faster, more protection, etc. And they're charging 690. Now, a lot of people will still go with Apple. They don't want to do an upgrade, etc. I kind of get that. If the price difference isn't a lot, stick with Apple. You know what you're getting with Apple. You don't have to worry about anything like that. Fine. You're saving money by going with the Studio Drive, but if you're one of those people that would rather just pay the extra and go to Apple for 2 terabyte of storage, fine. But that argument kind of gets lost as you go up the storage options. 4 terabyte, 799 euros for the Mac Studio M1 and M2. Now 4 terabytes, they're charging 799. Apple are charging 1,380. 1,380. So now, what's that? 580 euros or so of a difference now for just upgrading the drive yourself and getting a better drive with a longer warranty. And now we go down to a whopping 8 terabyte, 899 euros. So like 900 euros. A lot of money for 8 terabytes of storage. But Apple are charging 2,760. So you can save about 1,861 euros or whatever. You can save that by purchasing a Studio Drive and doing the upgrade yourself. That's insane. That's insane amounts of storage. So I think it's great. I think it's great that we're in a situation where Apple have built the Mac Studio and built the new Mac Mini, which I've got here, built that with the upgradable SSD. That's great. It's a step in the right direction. It's not perfect. I'd love to be able to just lift open the lid here and just put in my own normal SSD that just has, the standard form factor. That would be perfect. But it's good that there is an option out there. Now, I'm not sure what's going to happen with this Kickstarter project as far as are Apple going to step in? Is there going to be any legal ramifications or anything like that? We're still waiting for these things to kind of develop. But if this company is legit and starts selling these drives out there, why would anyone pay extra money to Apple for storage? Why would you pay Apple those crazy storage prices? Why pay more for storage to Apple? Why give them more money for storage? I just don't get it. You just wouldn't do that. You would always go to the Studio Drive and buy a cheaper option. And I do think moving forward, if this Studio Drive Kickstarter project is a success, We might see other companies doing the same. Maybe we'll see big hard drive companies stepping in as well. That would be amazing if we see all the kind of big players, Seagate and all that, coming out there and releasing their own modules with their own warranties and, you know, making it competitive, and we'll see prices drop down. But why, where's my mouse here? Why would anyone buy this and spend a couple of €100 or a couple of grand, a few $1,000 to take up to 2 or 4 or 8 terabyte of storage? Why would you pay close to 3 grand when you can pay $900? It doesn't make any sense. I think that this is fantastic news for Apple users. I think that those of you who are out there with a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio will share my delight with this news, because it's going to give you more flexibility with what you upgrade your devices to from a storage perspective, and it will save you a lot of money as well. I do hope that the Studio Drive project is a success, because maybe it is the start, the kickstart, excuse the pun, of a new revolution where we see more storage options for Mac Minis, Mac Studios, iMacs, and possibly MacBooks. I think giving users, customers, more options for upgrading memory and storage, that's always going to be good. To learn more about this Kickstarter project, please check out the Kickstarter URL, which I will share down below in the description area. Please do check it out, read through it, and give me your opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, so please do post a comment below. And until next time, take care.